Hey everyone, welcome back to Tefillah Tidbits on Tuesdays. I'm Rabbi Molly Wiesel, happy to be here with you today and very happy to be here with our artist in residence, Josh Niehaus. Hey Josh.
Hello, everybody.
So today we are looking at Psalm 29. And you may have noticed that we've been building up through the days of creation, through the days of the week, psalm by psalm, and we had Psalm 95, Psalm 96, Psalm 97, Psalm 98, Psalm 99. And now instead of going to Psalm 100, we go to Psalm 29. So it's kind of a sidestep, but I think the reason that this psalm was chosen as the final psalm before we sing Lachado and welcome in the spirit of Shabbat is because it really evokes some of these themes of this liminal moment. We're in this transitional moment between the end of the week, Shabbat, the start of Shabbat. Lachado is that moment where we welcome in our extra soul, where we welcome in the Shekhinah, the bride, the Shabbat bride. And so let's talk a little bit about what's in this psalm. So this psalm, and we're in the final day of creation, which is the day that humans were created and all of the creatures that inhabit the earth. And the beginning of this psalm, it repeats 3 times, present to Adonai. And again, that we've been using Rabbi Richard Levy's translation, Zichrono Livracha, our beloved teacher and rabbi. So he translates the beginning of the psalm, present to Adonai, O godlike beings. Oh, present to Adonai, resplendence and strength. Present to Adonai, the resplendence due God's name. And this idea of being present to Adonai, that really resonated with me as I think about where this psalm fits in the Kabbalat Shabbat service. We have done the spiritual work. We've gone through, mentally walked through our week, went through the days of creation. And as we do that, as we sing all of these psalms, we set aside all of the things that normally occupy our minds during the week in order to really be able to be present to Adonai as we close the door on the week and welcome in Shabbat. So I thought that was really interesting how this psalm starts. And I'm sure it's no coincidence that that's the part of the reason that this psalm is what we sing right before Lachado. So the psalm goes on to have, there are all these really interesting descriptions of God's strength. Previously, we've been focusing a lot on how we praise God and the whole world sings to God. And we've talked a lot about imagery with nature. And here too, there's a lot of imagery with nature. We read about the cedars of Lebanon, but what we have is different. It's talking about God's strength, and how God can sort of make the trees dance, and shake the trees. So it's a different dynamic. It's less about the earth praising God and more about how the earth is a display of God's strength. Now, when we talk about God's strength, I don't know about you, sometimes I think about that in not a negative term per se, but sort of like a mighty ruler kind of way. But it's not meant to be domineering or have those negative connotations. It is meant to be a source of comfort. And so what I find really fascinating are the final verses of this psalm. And these are the verses that Josh is going to teach us a melody to. The psalm ends, Adonai is giving strength to the people. Adonai is blessing the people with peace. So it's just a really interesting turn. We've had all these verses talking about how God can make the trees dance, and how God's strength shows throughout the world. And then the end is not necessarily the climax that you would expect from that. The end is that God is going to give, through God's strength, God is going to give us strength, and God is going to bless us with peace, which for me, feels like a really comforting image. And I just want to share quickly this commentary from Rabbi Levy that I found fascinating, is that in talking about those two final verses, Rabbi Levy wrote that the verb here and in the next line, so the verb in the last two lines, are in the imperfect, uncompleted form, indicating an ongoing act on God's part. And he writes that perhaps this phrase, Adonai is blessing the people with peace, suggests that it is God's visible power in nature that keeps our enemies at bay, enforcing peace. But it could also be that shalom here has the wider meaning of shlemut, which means wholeness. He writes, when Israel sings the praises of the God who created and controls nature, we can appreciate how every part of nature and humanity are intertwined, each playing its own role in the sovereign realm over which God presides. So I love that idea that while on the one hand, we're talking about God's strength and how God sort of rules all aspects of creation, at the same time, we're also talking about how creation is this ongoing, unfinished process. And that's where we come in, that we are part of that process of creation with God. And that when God gives us strength, that is what brings about shlemut, brings about wholeness. So Josh, I would love to learn this new melody with you from Psalm 29, from the final verses of this psalm. Adonai is giving strength to the people. Adonai is blessing the people with peace.
Adonai Oz le'amo yiten, Adonai Oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. Adonai Oz le'amo yiten, Adonai Oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. God will give strength to all people and bless us with shalom. God will give strength to all people and bless us with shalom. Adonai Oz le'amo yiten, Adonai Oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. Try that. Adonai Oz le'amo yiten, Adonai Oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. God will give strength, God will give strength to all people and bless us with shalom. God will give strength to all people and bless us with shalom. God will give strength to all people, bless us with shalom. God will give strength to all people and bless us with shalom. Bless us with shalom.
Beautiful. Thank you, Josh. So, do you want to just start by telling us who wrote that melody? And yeah, so first of all, who wrote that melody, Josh?
Um, it's on Spotify listed under Sababa. I assume that's a group. It might be a person, but the thing is it's amazing. If I search for a prayer, Adonai Oz in this case, I have so many options to choose from, and there's people that you expect to see when you look for tefillah on Spotify or Apple Music. The big names like we've done a lot of Yoel Sykes and Noah Aronson and Dan Nichols, but there are so many people that I have no idea who they are. Like we were talking a bit about this before of
Yeah. So, what struck me, it's a beautiful melody. And when you said, when we were talking before and you said, I'm going to do Adonai Oz by Sababa, I was like, Sababa, cool, Sababa, but I don't know Sababa. And so I was just curious, how you found this melody. And, I was wondering if you could talk just a little bit. I know you mentioned you found on Spotify, and I've had the same experience now where like it's not just, you have to go to Havana Shira so you can learn from these, this small group of very talented Jewish musicians who are wonderful. But now there are just like, there are so many people creating Jewish music. And I know we've talked a few weeks ago about how we're sort of in this golden age of Jewish musicians. And I'm just curious what you think about, like, what does that mean for us and for prayers, for people who are song leaders, learning new music, making that choice of like, what are we going to bring to the congregation? I'm just curious what you think about all that.
yeah, it's flourishing, it's exploding right now. Something that comes to mind with what you're saying is everyone here who's watching this probably knows Chava Morel, and she posted this video repost of someone who calls themselves the Singing Jewess, I think out of the East Coast, not exactly sure. And this is a young person. I mean, maybe in high school, maybe a little older. I'm not
TikTok,
sure.
right?
On TikTok. I'm not hip enough to be on TikTok, but Chava
Never mind.
shared it from TikTok, I think, to Facebook or Instagram. And this young woman, as the soul of, you know, someone you'd expect to hear with a lot of life experience, just so soulful and singing tefillah. And it's what me as a Jewish educator and a Jewish musician, and I'm trying to get the cool kids in camp or in synagogue to learn to play music through their pop idols that they love, and then see if I can dovetail that somehow into Jewish music, because there's a shortage of Jewish song, or there used to be at least. But now it just seems to be, it's trending on TikTok. I don't know what it is. I think it speaks to what you spoke about in the High Holiday sermon, that there's this real hunger for spirituality, and some people think that they can get it through a walk in the woods or through Soul Cycle or core power yoga or whatever it might be, but it's in Judaism. It's at the essence of what we do, and people are discovering that. I think Jewish music is the reason, to a large part, this new kind of sound that's coming out of Israel with Nava Tehillah and Hillel Tigay, where it brings us to this tribal feeling of ancient Jewish experiences. And people are finding the spirituality in Judaism through music at a very young age, and it's exploding. I mean, when I go to these conferences you're talking about, Song Leader Boot Camp, which you sent me to virtually a couple weeks ago now, there's more young people than people my age. I'm on the cusp. I'm not quite a young person anymore, but there are so many high schoolers, and they're not like, yeah, my camp sent me here. They're like, I want to write tefillah music. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that too, is like, I think, the role of camp has been so important. That's where Debbie Friedman started. And you think about like Cantor Jeff Klepper and Rabbi Danny Freelander, and Dan Nichols talks all the time about how important Gucci was to him. And that certainly has its role still. But it seems to be, like you said, it's trending on TikTok. Like, it's not just, it is no longer just about those kids who are like in youth group and go to camp and are super into all the things. There is this hunger that's spreading, and it's really cool. So, and like it creates a challenge, but a fun challenge, I think, for us, which is that, we have this spreadsheet that we keep so we can sort of keep track of, like, okay, which Micha Mocha did we do? Okay, we've done Debbie Friedman's for a few weeks in a row. Now let's switch it up. And we now have this just overwhelming, like, a wealth of choices, which is, it's hard to strike that balance of, we want things to be familiar, we want that comfort, but we also don't want it to just become rote and boring. So we want to introduce new things. And now, like, there's just so much to choose from. So it just kind of, like, I feel like we're in a very different place now, and it's exciting.
Yeah, it really is fun to vary this, and that's why I think these tefillah tidbits are cool, because not all of these tunes are going to become regulars in the service, and we want a lot of comfort food in there. That's one of the reasons why people come, something familiar. But you're right, there's just so much to choose from, and so many good, really good, complex harmonies and melodies. And I can't wait to get back and have a singing group in the sanctuary together, where we can have certain people who've learned the different harmonies planted amongst,
Maybe some younger people too.
for sure.
Yeah. All are welcome, everyone. Yeah, for sure. So, well, thank you for introducing me to a different Jewish group, Jewish musician, Sababa. Thanks for introducing this beautiful melody. And we look forward to singing it with you at our Shabbat services, our Kabbalat Shabbat services. We meet virtually at 7:00 on Friday. And we'll look forward to singing it this Shabbat with you.